Hey guys, it's Paradise, and if you're wondering what character you should play in Marvel Rivals, we have you covered here with all of the characters, what they do, and how their sort of playstyle is. So drop a like and comment below if you enjoy the video, and let's jump into it. First up, we have the God of Thunder himself, the newest tank that's been added to the roster. It's Thor. This character has a dive-heavy playstyle, and the key to success with Thor is managing his unique resource called Thor Force. Most of his abilities use these resources in exchange for much lower cooldowns, meaning so long as you play correctly, you can combo between them. His iconic hammer throw lets you tackle enemies at a range, striking them as you throw it and on the way back for moderate damage. Thor can use his Storm Surge to spin his Mjolnir before dashing forwards, knocking back any enemies that you hit. When you have all three Thor Force available, you can spend them all together to enter an awakened state, giving you temporary HP and a more powerful ranged normal attack that will shred through enemies. You do, however, have your Lightning Realm, which will replenish your Thor Force depending on how many enemies you catch in a small AoE around you. But you're going to soon see why this is necessary, because Thor only has 600 HP to start, but he makes up for it by having a way to constantly apply HP shields to himself anytime he uses a Thor Force ability. So weaving between them is going to be necessary if you want to survive. His ultimate, God of Thunder, has you leap into the air, dealing damage over time to anyone nearby, and after a short duration, Thor will come crashing down, dealing massive damage to anyone caught in the actual blast. So if you're looking for a dive tank that can take a few hits and just keep going, or you want to see if you're worthy, then you can't go wrong with Odin's son Thor. And next up is the adorable little shark named Jeff the land shark, that's actually an incredible support. Additionally, this is another newcomer to the roster. He switches between spouting jets of water out of his mouth to heal, and large AoE projectiles that deal splash damage. He can also leave behind healing bubbles that heal allies when picked up, as well as increasing the amount of healing they take for a short time. Given that Jeff's head takes up about 40% of his hitbox, he has a useful passive that lowers the amount of damage you take from critical strikes. He is, however, able to keep a very low profile by diving underground with hide and seek. This lets you move around at a much faster pace and gives you the ability to climb walls. His ultimate, though, called It's Jeff, lets you dive underground before swallowing both enemies and allies in a large AoE above. After doing so, he can choose where to spit out either group as he pleases. With the enemy group taking damage over time the longer that he holds them, this can actually be surprisingly devastating for the enemy team if you decide to swallow all of them up while you're still holding a point during overtime. This is because they cannot contest while in Jeff's belly. So if you want to be a useful support with a ton of utility and movement, or you just find him cute, picking up Jeff is not too bad of an idea. And then we have Adam Warlock, another new support that's capable of dealing good damage and healing, as well as having one of the strongest ultimates in the game. With his Soul Bond, Adam is able to link together allies, granting them healing over time as well as distributing the damage they take between them. This lets your whole team share the pain a lot more effectively, and he can also heal himself and allies when grouped up with Avatar of Lifestream. This bounces between all nearby allies, healing them a significant amount. His damage is very potent too, dealing surprisingly good damage on headshots, meaning he can still contribute to the team's overall DPS as well as putting out those heals. His ultimate, though, Karmic Revival, is an insane ability that places down a large spawn area. Adam then gets a revival aura around him for up to 10 seconds. This will bring back allies when he gets within range of them, and this can literally give you the swing you need to win a losing teamfight. So if you want an overall solid support capable of dealing respectable damage, as well as having the ability to literally help you win a teamfight just off of his ultimate, Adam Warlock is going to be your play. Next we have Venom, a hyper-mobile dive tank that's capable of menacing the entire enemy team with both high mobility, high damage, and a ridiculous amount of survivability. Venom can swing around at high speeds, crash down on enemies with his Frenzied Arrival ability, knock them into the air before tethering them with his symbiotic power called Cellular Corrosion, which also slows and damages them so they can't get away, making them easy targets to mop up. He's a hyper-aggressive tank that excels in killing off squishy, isolated targets, but this means he's also a bit of a selfish character, not having any abilities that directly directly protect his teammates. Instead, he generates a HP shield using symbiotic resilience, which temporarily gives him a massive buff to his max HP. This scales the lower his HP is, and when activated, you can literally go to insane levels of health and easily double your already formidable health pool. Because of this, Venom often requires the entire enemy team to focus him down in order to defeat him. His ultimate though, Feast of the Abyss, will see you swallowing up the opposition in a Jaws style. This deals massive damage and lets you clean up who's ever left with ease during or after a boss fight, so if you want to be an absolute menace on the battlefield, Venom is your go-to. Next is the Sorcerer Supreme himself, Doctor Strange, who can protect allies with his barrier called Shield of the Seraphim. Being the master of magic that he is though, Doctor Strange doesn't come without his tricks. He's able to fly for a short period of time, allowing you to take routes that you otherwise couldn't go on foot, as well as hover in the air, which means you can be more tricky for melee characters to target you. He excels at holding choke points with his barrier, and is very lethal in medium to close range. He's able to fire high damaging daggers at opponents, which helps build up his dark magic. All of this magic does come with a price though. As his cape begins to glow, he will build up stacks, which if he doesn't unleash, will stop him from being able to heal. But getting up close when he decides to release the energy in a maelstrom of madness will deal insane damage to any enemy unfortunate enough to be nearby him. Strange can also conjure a portal, allowing him to instantly teleport himself and his allies to any location you choose. You can even set it above the unsuspecting enemy's line and shoot through it with relative safety. His ultimate ability though lets him use the Eye of Agamotto to separate nearby enemies' souls from their bodies. Any damage dealt to the souls is also dealt to the characters, helping you get more mileage out of your AoEs. All in all, if you want to dominate the battlefield with a mastery of magic, Doctor Strange is going to be the pick for you. Next up, the invincible Iron Man is your pick if you like to take to the skies. He can rain down damage on foes with his AoE repulsor blasts and the iconic Unibeam. Iron Man has the ability to fly around freely for as long as he wants, and is able to shift into a hyper velocity mode that allows him to move forwards at a rapid pace. While in this mode, Iron Man can also launch micro missiles in a barrage, pelting enemies below him. He can also activate his Armor Overdrive, transforming him into his enhanced combat mode that will improve the damage of his normal attacks as well as allow him to fire missiles while stationary. His ultimate is the Invincible Pulse Cannon that lets you charge for a short period of time before firing off a massive burst that can one-shot any enemies caught in it. If you want to dominate from the skies with superior firepower and range, then you should go for Iron Man. On the other hand, if more mobility is your thing, Spider-Man has you covered. He has rapid movement that's easy to learn but hard to master with his web swing, allowing you to get from point A to point B very quickly. The name of the game for Spider-Man though is to flank your enemies, and his abilities allow you to do that very effectively. He does have other mobility options like wall crawling and double jumps to ensure you can get where you need to be safely, and Spider-Man's Spidey Sense passive will let you know if there are enemies nearby. Once he gets into battle though, Spider-Man is all about comboing enemies with a flurry of abilities to pick up kills. You can use abilities like Get Over Here to pull enemies to you, as well as the amazing combo to launch enemies into the air in order to disorient them. Hitting enemies with his web shooters will attach spider trackers to them that increase the damage he deals with his abilities, and allows you to pull yourself to the enemy. His ultimate Spectacular Spin does massive damage in an AoE around him, allowing you to clean up in group fights and deny pushes with its stun effect. Spider-Man is all about speed, quick decision making, and skirmishing, so pick him if that's your playstyle. And then we have the master of magnetism, it's Magneto, and he comes in as a barrier tank. He's capable of shrugging off enemy fire and abilities with his metallic curtain. Unlike other barriers though, this only lasts for a short period of time, so it's important to use it wisely. He does however fire orbs of metal that explode on impact, and he excels at putting out a ton of AoE damage to the enemy team. He is however capable of skirmishing with the squishier members of the enemy team if you can hit your projectiles. One of his abilities allows you to wreath a single ally in a metal bulwark, blocking all incoming damage and converting it into metallic rings that float just behind Magneto. These rings can then be used to power his mag cannon, a powerful blast of metal that deals heavy damage and knocks enemies away at full stacks. Using his magnetism, Magneto is capable of slowing his descent, falling much slower than normal on command. This allows him to maintain a height advantage while jumping off of ledges and traversing the map in ways that others can't. His ultimate, Meteor M, allows you to fly freely in the air, gathering all the loose debris and enemy projectiles into a massive ball of metal. And then you unleash the ball, dealing damage in a big AoE, and if it's charged enough by enemy projectiles, it's even capable of one-shotting most characters on a direct hit. So if you want a good balance of offense and defense, then Magneto is the clear choice. And then we have everyone's favorite heavy hitter, it's Bruce Banner and Hulk, who acts as an offensive dive tank. When playing, you will start out as Bruce Banner and you're equipped with the Gamma Ray Gun, which will deal chip damage at a medium range. You can throw out a Gamma Grenade that deals damage to enemies in a large AoE, but more importantly, it knocks them and you back, allowing you to maintain space. This is important because while you're in this form, you're one of the squishiest characters in the game, only having 200 HP. But the magic truly happens when you transform into Hulk using Banner's ultimate. This, unlike others, is available from the start of the game and lets you turn into the Hulk that we all know and love. It gives you access to a majority of Hulk's abilities, being predominantly melee focused, and can get you right into the action. You can easily jump in with your incredible leap ability, letting you jump over a long distance to not only close the gap but also knock flying enemies out of the sky. Once you're in, you can then protect yourself and nearby allies with your indestructible guard, a shield which will absorb incoming damage for a short time. But it also charges up your ultimate. And for when enemies do decide to engage you at range, Hulk then has a few abilities to help deal with this, being able to immobilize enemies at a range with his radioactive lockdown, as well as dealing moderate damage with his classic Gamma Burst Thunderclap ability. Once you have his ultimate, Hulk Smash, you will transform even larger than before, turning into Monster Hulk. While in this form, he loses access to his shield, but gains empowered abilities and extra HP. Unlike his regular form, this mode does have a time limit, and while transformed you can reuse your ultimate to perform World Breaker. This will grab the nearest enemy and beat them to a pulp. So if you want to be a super aggressive tank that has the ability to look out for your team, or you just want to beat people up Hulk style, then Hulk is the choice for you. And next up is Punisher, who may be simple, but he's definitely effective. He has access to both an automatic rifle and a shotgun, giving him lethality at all ranges, and if this wasn't enough, he can employ a culling turret for a time in order to effectively suppress your enemies and rapidly deal damage to anyone that doesn't break line of sight. This acts as a devastating aerial denial ability, but he also has his zipline, which allows him to get to different vantage points, and he has a smoke grenade that can obscure line of sight. This is perfect due to his passive called Warrior's Gaze, which actually lets you see an outline of any enemies who have recently left his vision for a short time. This means you can pick enemies off while the smoke grenade is active, or track down fleeing enemies. His ultimate Final Judgment has you suit up in an exoskeleton complete with dual Gatling guns and a missile launcher for 10 seconds. This means you can just absolutely destroy everything in your path. If a traditional shooter is more your thing and you have cracked aim, you'll find a lot of mileage out of playing Punisher. And next is Black Panther, a powerful melee assassin capable of bringing down any enemies with his combo and stack-based playstyle. The key to being an effective Black Panther player is to apply his vibranium marks using his different abilities, such as using his spear toss, which deals damage and marks enemies in an AoE. Marked enemies will then alter the behavior of your key abilities, such as Sprint Rend, which has you dash through an opponent dealing damage. Marked enemies will reset the cooldown and give you a temporary shield, so it's paramount that you mark your enemies before going in and comboing. This is then emphasized even further because Black Panther has one of the smaller health pools compared to other heroes in the game, so failing your combos could actually mean death. But good mark management will allow you to dash around the entire enemy team, taking minimal damage while shredding through their backline. In a pinch though, you do have your ultimate that can help you mark enemies in a large AoE, while also dealing good damage and refreshing your Sprint Rend. This can be the difference between a team wipe and going back to spawn, so make sure to use it wisely. Essentially, if an assassin is your preferred playstyle in other games, Black Panther will be a very fun character for you to try. And next up is Loki, a healer that focuses on deception and trickery. His main playstyle revolves around his illusions, which allows him to copy himself, making it difficult to tell which Loki is the real one. You can even switch positions with these illusions at will using devious exchange, or even turn invisible while leaving an illusion in his place. The main use of his illusions, however, is to enhance his healing and his damage. Loki will heal allies when he hits them with his normal attack, Mystic Missile. His illusion will also shoot whenever you aim it, meaning you can triple the output of your healing if you have the maximum number of illusions up. His regeneration domain can be a good way to trick enemies into healing any target that you're trying to burst down. This is because it converts all incoming damage into healing for a short time. And then his ultimate, God of Mischief, gives him the ability to shapeshift into any targeted character, ally or enemy, and then play as them for a short time. This also gives you use of their ultimate, meaning if you copy the right character, you can literally turn the tide of any battle. So if you want a technical support with a lot of room for outplays, then Loki is your guy. Next is Storm, another aerial-based DPS capable of buffing her team and dealing good damage. Her main kit is centered around her weather control ability, and this is always on as a passive AoE, and it does one of two effects. You can switch between gaining a movement speed boost to your team with Tornado, or grant them a damage boost with Thunder. This ability is then further enhanced by using Goddess's Boost, which empowers the effects. Tornado will then give a sizable boost to your speed, whereas Thunder will inflict lightning damage to any enemy standing in your AoE aura. Her ultimate, Omega Hurricane, lets Storm pick a nearby location before teleporting to it and transforming into a hurricane that deals incredible damage to anyone caught within it. It's good to note this includes flyers that aren't extra high in the sky, so if you want to provide both buffs to your team while also DPSing effectively, Storm is your go-to. And then we have Star-Lord, an effective and mobile flanker capable of bursting down targets and excelling in 1v1 scenarios. His dual element guns fire rapidly, outputting damage quicker than most other characters, but does have a small ammo size to compensate. Luckily though, Star-Lord also has his stellar shift ability that not only lets you kite enemies around, but also avoid incoming abilities. It will also automatically reload your guns, meaning you can evade and dance around your opponents and not worry about the downtime with reloading. He's also capable of quickly speeding away with his rocket propulsion, but you do have to manage his fuel reserves if you don't want to get caught out. If caught in a group though, Star-Lord can do heavy damage in a small AoE around him with his blaster barrage. This is especially helpful for finishing off more agile characters in the roster. His ultimate, Galactic Legend, is one of the most potent damage dealers in the whole game, giving him free flight and auto lock-on to anyone in his line of sight. When you pair this with his auto reloading after dodging, you'll be able to clear up kills easily. Star-Lord is best for players who want to flank at her range while also kiting enemies. Next is Scarlet Witch, who's another character that is simple to play but hard to master. Her main bread and butter cycle will be to build up chaos energy with her chaos control attack. This will lock onto nearby enemies and then unleash energy, which becomes more potent with Chthonian Burst, which shoots an AoE projectile that deals a ton of damage. Being a magic user, Scarlet Witch has access to some tricky utility moves, such as Dark Seal that creates a stunning bubble that periodically stuns enemies that touch it. There's also the Mystic Protection that allows you to escape otherwise deadly situations pretty much unscathed. Her ultimate is Reality Eraser, which lets her charge up for a short time before destroying everything within a massive AoE. While performing this ultimate, she is incredibly vulnerable, so it pays to work together as a team in order to pull it off because it does insane damage. If you want to be a DPS that is simpler to play but still incredibly effective once you master her, then look no further than Scarlet Witch. Next is Rocket Raccoon, a super potent support character that honestly could have been a DPS. He does competitive damage with his Gatling gun, pretty much shredding health bars like a DPS character. But what makes him a support is his ability to shoot healing spheres that bounce off of walls, healing nearby allies passively. Other than this, he does have a decent amount of mobility, being able to dash around with his jetpack. He also has a slow fall speed and can run on walls freely. He's able to deploy the BRB, or the Battle Rebirth Beacon, that creates armor packs for your allies, while also reviving the first fallen ally that dies within its range. This means they can completely skip their whole walk back from spawn. His ultimate is called See Ya, and it grants you an AoE damage boost to your allies in a large area. This forces the enemy team to choose between destroying it or actually fighting at a disadvantage. Rocket Raccoon is definitely one of the more simple supports in the game, but he is definitely not any less valuable for it, so if you want a more laid-back character that helps the team in important ways, then Rocket Raccoon is a brilliant choice. Next is Groot, a control tank. he utilizes walls and terrain to lock down choke points while also dealing damage at a range. So by utilizing his Thorn Lash and Ironwood walls, this will be key to your strategy as a tank. Both of these will have extra abilities when Groot is nearby. Thorn Lash walls, being true to their name, will lash out whenever an enemy takes damage while in range and deals additional damage to them, while the Ironwood walls will grant a shield to Groot and his allies whenever they deal damage to enemies. By using these walls, Groot can take advantage of funneling enemies into tight spaces and then throwing Spore Bombs, which deal damage in an AoE before clustering into more tiny explosions. On top of this, he has one of the better ranges out of all of the tanks, allowing him to hit enemies at a medium to long range with his Vine Strike. For his ultimate, Groot throws a Strangling Prison, which ensnares nearby enemies and pulls them into the center of it. This will keep them imprisoned for a short time, and it can absolutely be devastating to use against enemy teams that are pushed as a group. So if you want to utilize smart positioning or strategic choke points, then Groot is the perfect character to try. And then we have Peni Parker, another control-based tank. Peni excels at area denial, setting down a variety of traps and gadgets to make things harder for the enemy team. She can set down her bionic spider nest that creates a large web of healing and movement speed bonus to your allies. Meanwhile, it spawns in drones that chase down enemies in the area before exploding. Within this web, Peni can also hide arachno mines, which activate when enemies are nearby, dealing large AoE damage. On top of these area control abilities, Peni has incredible mobility options, being able to drag and attach herself to a web to ensure she can't be displaced. She can also crawl around on walls to get a better vantage point, and shoot out a cyber web snare, which will immobilize enemies when hit, or create smaller versions of her bionic spider nest web, healing her and providing bonus move speed. Her ultimate Spider Sweeper causes her to dash forwards with speed, deploying all of her abilities periodically and knocking back enemies with her spider leg sweep. So if you want a different approach to area denial, as well as having some support capabilities even as a tank, Peni is a versatile character that you can't go wrong with. Next is Hela, a powerful long-range DPS character that specializes in picking off backliners. She has some of the most damaging projectiles in the game, is capable of two-shotting most squishies with a headshot, and her mobility allows you to reach high out-of-the-way places in order to snipe. And it can even be used to escape from melee characters. She has very deadly basic attacks and has several potent abilities that can help deal with multiple targets. She can throw a short-ranged orb of energy that pulls enemies towards it and damages them, as well as shooting rapid projectiles that explode after they've embedded themselves in a target. Anytime she kills an enemy though, a crow will appear briefly before exploding, dealing some good damage to any enemies nearby. Her ultimate, Goddess of Death, puts her high above the battlefield before letting her rain down explosive crows on anyone that she can see. Hela is honestly one of the more potent picks in the game, especially for countering strong carry characters, so if you need a specific character on the enemy team dead, she's going to be one hell of a great pick. Next is Magik, a melee character wielding her large soul sword. She deals enough damage to kill pretty much anyone in a 1v1, even if they're a tank. She is however a flanker and is best used against strong isolated targets, or otherwise she's great in situations where she can't be focused down. She can build up a HP shield whenever she inflicts damage due to her passive Limbo's Might, and apart from her devastating sword swings, Magik has a ton of tools at her disposal, including short-range teleports, AoE spin slashes, and being able to engage and knock enemies into the air with her Umbral Incursion. She can also summon a small demon that does melee damage in a single spot, forcing enemies to move in order to avoid taking the damage. Her ultimate, Dark Child, lets you transform into a more powerful demon form, enhancing all of her abilities with extra damage, range, and functionality. So if you like an agile melee character that's difficult to take down in a 1v1, Magik is your choice. Next is Namor, a DPS that summons minions in order to do his bidding, excelling at locking down capture points and choke points. Aquatic Domination allows you to summon 2 monstro creatures to fight for you. These will automatically attack the nearest enemy, and hitting enemies with his trident will lower the cooldown of this so you can summon faster. You can also utilize his Wrath of the Seven Seas trident throw to cause all of the active monstros to focus the target you hit. On top of this, Namor can enter a cocoon state in a pinch, sending him high into the air while making him immune to damage for up to 5 seconds. His ultimate, Horn of Proteus, allows you to summon Giganto, a massive whale-like creature that then smashes into a location you choose, dealing massive damage to anyone standing there. So if you want to summon the power of the seas to help bolster your team's choke points, Namor is a wonderful choice. And then we have Luna Snow, another support that could easily have been a DPS, as she can put out large amounts of damage and healing. She heals allies and damages enemies both with her normal attacks, and can empower this attack in order to pierce through allies and enemies with her Ice R's. She can also share healing with one other target that she marks with her Share the Stage ability, which is best for putting on your main tank or your super mobile characters who are hard to hit. But she does also have the potential to freeze enemies for a short time, allowing your team to focus them down or for you to get away. Her ultimate, Fate of Both Worlds, has Luna Dance, creating a large AoE that she can switch between either healing or damage boosting effects. So if you're an aim god but also want to heal, Luna will be incredibly potent in your hands. And next is Mantis, a tried and true support character, having access to several buffs, healing and crowd control effects. She uses life orbs to power her abilities, which you can regain by hitting headshots. She can then use them in a variety of different ways, like giving herself and her allies damage bonus effects or healing over time. Each time you consume a life orb to use an ability, you gain Nature's Favor, which applies extra movement speed and healing over time on yourself. You can also use Spore Slumber to shoot out a grenade that sedates an enemy, keeping them immobile for a long time unless they take damage. This is perfect for shutting down a key target on the enemy team, as long as your teammates don't damage that person during the fight. Her ultimate though, Soul Resurgence, has you conjure a large AoE that gives a movement boost and heal over time to all allies. So if you want a character that has some utility that's not seen on other supports, and you want to dish out a ton of buffs, Mantis is a great choice. So which character do you like the look of the most, and do you plan to main? Tell us down below. And subscribe for all the videos coming soon on your favourite games that you don't want to miss out on.